Remember, remember the 5th of November, the gunpowder, treason, and plot. I know of no reason why the gunpowder treason should ever be forgot.
Welcome back to the Backwards History Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Will, with my co-host, Kevin. Say hi, Kevin.
Hi, Kevin.
Shut up, Kevin.
I refuse.
Anarchy.
Civil disobedience.
Well, looks like we missed a golden opportunity last week with our episode, given the fact that the 5th of November was last week, and we're not talking about Election Day.
Boo.
We're talking about the gunpowder treason and plot. Remember the 5th of November?
We did not.
No, we did not. So we figured we'd take the time this week to
Rectify that oversight.
and rectify the misinformation and miseducation that we've all received when it comes to, well, apparently all, except for Kevin,
I am a rare breed.
on what the gunpowder treason and plot was actually about. Take it away, Kevin.
That's right. Just another apology for, not realizing what a momentous opportunity we had last week to really kind of knock this one out of the park with timing.
Our bad.
Sorry. But the gunpowder plot is a very famous one, especially for those in the UK who have been showing us a lot of love. Appreciate y'all. Keep it up. Tell your friends.
And just for the clarification for our American audience who don't know who Guy Fawkes was, other than the mask that you see most associated with Antifa and Anonymous and things of that nature, Guy Fawkes, the mask for Americans was most notably referenced in V for Vendetta,
2005,
a movie about anarchy in the UK, so to speak, in a authoritarian setting in the UK, but we'll get back to that later.
Right. Now, Guy Fawkes was a conspirator in the gunpowder plot that took place, as we mentioned, November 5th, 1605. He was I'm not going to say a religious zealot, but a very, very, very devoted Catholic who actually fought for the Catholic Spanish against the Protestant Dutch. And during this time in England, there is a lot of unrest amongst the Protestant Catholic populations in the country, following Henry VIII's breakup with the Catholic Church. England moves towards Protestantism, which was made popular in 1517 by Martin Luther's 95 Theses, and basically outlining why the Catholic Church and all the corruption was bad. People needed a wake-up call.
Which he famously nailed to the doors of the Catholic Church?
Allegedly.
Yeah.
Anyway, you fast forward roughly a century, and there's still a lot of unrest. Henry VIII's daughter, Elizabeth I, makes Protestantism, or the Church of England, the official religion, and people are required to regularly attend services. Well, this makes the Catholic minority in England very, very resentful. You're familiar with priests having secret rooms hidden or priest holes where they could hide from mobs, basically not, avoiding being lynched. And anyway, the Catholics they're looking to reclaim the government. So Guy Fawkes and his other 13 conspirators come up with a brilliant idea of, hey, all the government officials, all the high-ranking officials, including James I, the king, are all going to be in one place. If we blow it up, then we can put a Catholic-minded or a Catholic back on the throne, and we can basically retake the government for England in the name of Catholicism.
So if we take out the king and all of the lords and ladies and blah, blah, blah,
right, and all that,
then we can put in place this Catholic theocracy.
Exactly.
In Britain. Not just anarchy,
right,
like what Guy Fawkes is associated with now.
Right, as he's come to be a symbol of anti-government sentiment, anarchy. when in fact it was quite the opposite. He just didn't like the current form of government and wanted to put in place, as Will said, a theocracy, or one based off of religion or religious views. And so the holiday starts as actually a celebration of James I not dying at the hands of an assassination attempt of Guy Fawkes and the rest of the conspirators. And people begin having bonfires, burning effigies of Guy Fawkes.
Which an effigy is just a basically like stuffed image of this individual.
He's seen as a very villainous character because he tried to kill the king, you know. Anyway, you fast forward some time and we start to see that the celebration continues, but people kind of forget why and the what behind it. And he starts to become this almost like a folk hero of anti-government sentiment, when in fact he was very much in for government, just not one that was Protestant. And his image is used, as we've alluded to earlier, a lot of groups these days. Anonymous being probably one of the most prolific ones. They do a lot of online. what would be a good term for that?
They're hackers.
There you go.
I mean, they're hackers.
There's no way around it. And then made famous by the 2005 movie V for Vendetta, he becomes the champion of the people.
Which most people's reference of who Guy Fawkes is and where that mask came from is from that movie. So I could see them using that in today's reference as what they're referring to, not necessarily its historical roots.
I just find it incredibly ironic that the holiday that started to celebrate the king not being assassinated is more so a celebration of the assassinators.
Right.
It's almost like Americans, celebrating John Hinckley when he tried to kill Reagan, and 100 years from now, like it got flipped. You know what I mean? It's like one of these. Like, do you know why you do that? In anthropology, there's a theory that people they adopt the traditions that they find themselves practicing. They don't really question why or where they come from. It's just we've always done that.
Is that kind of like what we've been referring to in our pagan roots?
Yeah, it is a...
Which, by the way, edition 2 of our pagan roots, Thanksgiving, is coming 2 Mondays from now. So stay tuned for that.
When you're trying to stay awake after eating all that good food. There's a podcast to listen to.
No. The podcast will be coming out Monday. They'll have plenty of time before they get all that tryptophan from the turkey and getting full.
Oh, the biggest nap day of the year, right?
But here's what I wanted to talk about with the Guy Fawkes. And for our UK listeners, if we're mispronouncing that name, I'm sorry. We don't know how to speak it.
Yes, please let us know on the Facebook page. Any feedback is welcomed.
Oh yeah, feedback's always welcome. But from now on, I'm just going to call him V.
There you go.
Because for what I'm going to talk about, it's a little bit more appropriate anyway. Because my introduction to, like, I believe I may have known about the plot to assassinate the king and things of that nature, but I never knew the guy's name or anything of that nature until that movie came out. So just like the rest of the country, I'm probably one of those. And I did like the premise set aside in that movie, being the libertarian constitutionalist that I am. Had I known the theocratic undertone, I may not have liked it as much, considering I'm agnostic as well.
Right.
And I feel like, religion has no place in politics because it should work for everyone and not just
a select group.
Anyone who fits into a certain religious group. But there's a speech in the movie where V takes over the national broadcasting thing that the chancellor has put in place, and he does a speech about the people being spied on and all this other stuff, and fear drove them to their giving up their liberties to this government. And if you listen to it, it's very true to form to even today.
Indeed.
And it bothered me a lot. Because it's like, I know why you did it. You know, you were afraid.
Exactly.
And I see that every day. Like, the American people are so scared of their own shadows because they're being told to be afraid, be afraid, be afraid. Let the government protect you, be afraid.
Fear is a powerful motivator.
Right. And the premise of taking back your, I don't say sovereignty because I don't like the sovereign citizen thing. That's a whole nother deal. I'm not game for that.
That's a loaded term, right?
Right,
there.
that's a loaded term. But take back your liberty, take back your country.
Right.
Basically, is what they did, and
Take back your power.
right. And in the movie, you had a bunch of people receive boxes with basically the exact same outfit that this dude wore, so that everybody could storm Parliament dressed like this guy. Then the authorities would have no idea who to shoot.
Right.
Granted, he wasn't there anyway.
Right.
But they outnumbered the authorities 100 to 1. So do we.
Oh yeah.
If at any point the American people decided to stop what's going on,
Unite.
we have the manpower. Even if we civilly, I'm not saying violently.
Oh no, not at all. No.
Like,
Peacefully assemble,
right.
peacefully protest.
Right. We could literally go fill up the local courthouse, body to body, just standing there, fill it where no one had room to move. Then you have nowhere to do anything. That would prove a point. Right. You know, if you do not govern by our consent, you do not govern. Period. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's the reason why we have the Bill of Rights, is because, you know, the Constitution was laid out. Okay, the government can do this, but it can't do this, and this. And then through fear, the government has made us go, oh, well, you can do this. Okay, maybe you can do this too. Okay, you can do this too. As long as it's reasonable, but then we let the government say what's reasonable, what's not. And if, you know, it's like telling the bully on the playground, you know, oh, well, you can hit me in the face, but only if it's this hard, or only if it's as hard as you feel like you should hit me in the face. The bully's going to hit you as hard as he wants to, and then if he has to justify it, he'll justify it. Oh, well, it does no good.
It's very similar to the Avengers, Captain America Winter Soldier, where the bad guy's giving his monologue, outlaying his evil plan of they tried to take power in World War II by force, and people fought back. So now they've conditioned him to willingly surrender it.
Right. I don't know whose quote this is, but it was the easiest way to enslave a man is to make him think he's free.
I've heard that one too. I don't recall exactly who said that, but I've heard it before.
And in the same token, the most effective prisons are the ones where you can't see the walls.
Right.
And I don't really even have to explain what that means in this context.
No, not at all.
When you live in a country that allows your freedoms guaranteed to you by the Constitution, by its founding document, to be taken away for, one, someone claiming they smell a plant, even if they don't, or two, a dog giving them probable cause. Fourth Amendment states no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation. Now there's more than that, but that's all I need for this. Supported by oath or affirmation. How can a dog that gives you probable cause support that probable cause with an oath or affirmation? It's a dog. So,
well, albeit a well-trained dog.
Right, but it's a dog. What is a dog's number one goal in life? To please its owner. I've seen where they've done double-blind tests and studies where they'll have like 3 SUVs sitting out, and they'll have drug dogs go and search these cars and find the drugs, the illicit drugs in these cars, and they would all hit or whatever. Problem was, none of them had drugs in the car. It was a study to see how often these dogs would hit. And the thing is, the dog was trying to please their owner.
Right.
That the owner, they see that the owner or their trainer or their handler or whatever sees that it gets happy when the dog finds drugs, then it's gonna do whatever it has to make the owner happy. So
positive reinforcement.
Right. So when you live in a system where government rubber stamps government, where does that leave the people that a government's supposed to be there for, and by the people?
Right. I think we were having a conversation earlier. I remember being in high school and they bringing drug dogs to sniff lockers, and they would hit all the time, but they're finding like snack cakes and bags of chips in someone's lunch. And these people, they'll bring the child out and start asking them, where's the drugs, and going through their stuff and just making this huge public spectacle and just shaming this person in public.
But it was not for that one person. It was for every other kid that saw, back to your point a minute ago, fear.
Right. And that public ridicule. And let's be honest, children aren't exactly the nicest segment of society when it comes to someone being, pointed out, someone not fitting in. If they see you out there with the police and drug dogs around, they're going to talk. And rumors are going to start.
And they're going to bully you and things of that nature.
And so your troubles don't end when you get a half-hearted apology from the handler. Oh, sorry, kid.
Well, that's just like any adult, though. You get, let's say, cops busted in my house. They're raiding the wrong house. They pull me out into the front yard, handcuff me in my front yard.
Right.
And then eventually end up letting me go. My whole neighborhood and everyone who's driven by has now seen me outside in handcuffs, blah, blah, blah. Regardless of what comes out of it, I'm now a criminal because, the police had him in handcuffs, so he must have done something wrong.
Right.
Fear thy neighbor. See something, say something. What's all these taglines that we see?
They get us, spying on each other, fighting each other, and further dividing us.
And it only got worse after 9/11.
Because now everybody's watching everybody.
But the terrorists hate our freedom. Well, if the terrorists hate our freedom, they won because we gave away more freedom because the government said, "Be scared. Let us protect you.
Right.
Give us more of your freedoms, and we'll be able to protect you." And now people are even pushing, give up your guns, let the police protect you. But the same groups that are saying let the police protect you are the ones that distrust the police the most. So
the irony is overwhelming.
Right. See, the thing is, for me, when seconds count, police are minutes away.
That's a problem.
I can't fit a cop in my pocket.
No.
But I can fit a Glock.
Very nice. And that's a point we've been trying to make, is your rights are your rights. And if nothing else, you have the right to have the choice, You shouldn't have to surrender the choice or the right to choose in order to feel safe. And that's the whole thing. They keep us constantly divided. And so we're not strong enough to stand up to the corruption and to the overall taking away of our freedom. Because if they come for one group and we don't say anything, what happens when they come for your group?
Right.
But if we're all the same, we're all united, they can't pick us off one at a time.
I can't remember the exact statement or quote or whatever saying, but a violation of one person's rights is a violation of everyone's rights.
Right.
Like even if speech that you don't agree with is shut down,
right,
on the merits that it's just something that people don't want to hear,
right,
that's not okay. Because you support it because they're shutting down something you don't agree with. But like Kevin just said, what happens when they come to shut down what you say because someone else doesn't agree with it?
And I think a perfect example of that is Saturday. The president was in Tuscaloosa for the football game, and the group that follows him around with that inflatable Trump baby,
right?
Someone gashed it with a razor blade because he didn't like that someone was expressing themselves peacefully and constitutionally protected, So, and then he
so
has
they damage property.
Right. He has huge support. There's a GoFundMe page to pay his bail.
Yeah, because he got arrested immediately after. For those of you who may not have seen this,
for felony malicious mischief
and destruction of property.
Right. And there are people, supporting what he did. I understand. There's a lot of people who don't agree with the whole Trump baby inflatable or whatever, but that is somebody's right that is exercising it. And while I may disagree with what you say, I will defend to the death your right to say it. Kind of thing is, you don't have to agree with it for it to be right. It is their It is their choice to do this.
I disagree with Trump's policy just as much as any other president.
Oh, of course.
I do like some of the things he's done, and I don't like a lot of the things he's done. But the same goes for Obama and Bush and
Clinton.
More Bush than anybody else, but y'all know this. But I think that the Trump baby's funny.
It's hilarious.
A friend of ours came into our local bar in a baby Trump inflatable, one of the smaller ones than that. But yeah.
But it's one of the things. Just because you don't agree with it doesn't mean you have the right to stop it.
Right.
You're infringing upon someone else's right because your emotions got in the way. Or your beliefs got in the way.
Boo freaking who.
Exactly. While religion has no place in politics, to a large extent,
emotions don't either.
To a large part, emotions and religion cause more problems than they solve.
Right.
And I'm sure that's an unpopular opinion to a lot of people. But I got history on my side that says I'm right.
Just like, I can't remember where it was. Some group of people brought a Baphomet statue out onto public property, and people lost their minds. While I don't personally agree with the group that would support bringing out a Baphomet statue, which for those of you who don't know, it's the devil or a demon or whatever. It's that type of symbology. Mm-hmm. While I don't support that, I'm not going to stop it, because I also don't support putting, Christianity in schools and things of that nature. Like
the whole thing with the 10 Commandments at the courthouse. I know it was a big to-do several years back.
Right. Separation church and state. The American government is not to support the establishment of any one religion. Right. So get it out of there. At my high school, we had Christian group, a Christian group that would have things in the auditorium, and if you weren't involved, you just got to sit in class, and a lot of times you were given busy work and things of that nature, almost like punishing you, for not being part of the Christian get together.
The majority,
but dollars to donuts. If someone wanted to say have like a Jewish gathering, let's do a little bit more closely related, or this one would have blown up. If they wanted to have a Muslim gathering in
their Abrahamic religions,
they would all go. They would have gone nuts. They would go nuts
due to misinformation and miseducation.
But they have no right to do that. All of them, you should either be able to openly express all of them, or none of them, and no one should be punished for doing neither or all.
Either, right.
And back to our original point on this podcast, Guy Fawkes wanted a Catholic-led government. It'd basically be like the Vatican, where it's a government and it's a government and a church in one, right? I don't agree with that. As an American, where we don't have to. Or that's how it's supposed to be. But people argue, United States is a Christian nation. No, it's not. Its second president ever literally said it is not founded at all on Christian beliefs.
And it was purposely designed that way not to be.
Even
Christian.
The reference of God in anything is ambiguous, because
God takes multiple forms across several different cultures.
Right. Jehovah, God,
Yahweh,
Jesus, Allah, Well, it just depends on who you talk to. Buddha is God. It's an ambiguous term intentionally.
Right. And it's one of those things, we see things differently, but we're describing the same thing.
Pretty much.
We're just using different words, different methodologies. And it's amazing how divisive it can be. And sometimes very intentionally so. Like I said, to keep us divided.
No, by no means am I trying to tell you not to practice your own religion. I'm not trying to, down on any religion at all.
We're just saying you should have the right.
Yeah, practice your own as you see fit, but don't bring it into how everybody else should live their lives.
I always have the saying, I'll respect your beliefs as long as you afford me the same respect.
Right. It's a mutual respect thing. And as far as I'm aware, from the multiple religions that I know anything about, most of them teach that. So practice what you say you practice. The Christian thing is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you.
The golden rule.
Yeah. So
who has the gold makes the rules.
That's a different rule, Kevin. That's an episode for later.
Is it really a different rule?
Probably episode titled "In the Fed."
In the Fed, very nice.
That'll be later.
Keep an eye out for it.
Right. Well, right now we want to take a moment to recognize Veterans Day, because this episode will be posting on Veterans Day, and we want to say a thank you to all of the men and women who have served or are serving this great nation. Also, don't forget about their families.
That's the one that gets forgotten a lot, I think.
Because while they're out doing their duty, their families are keeping their homes together. They're supporting them while they're out doing their jobs, but then they're also supporting them when they come home. They have to deal with the PTSD and things of that nature, and knowing how to not,
implode.
Judge them for it.
Right.
But they're the foundation of them being able to do what they do.
Mm-hmm.
So when just as much as today is about the veterans themselves, don't forget about their families too.
Well said.
But as always, we don't want you to take our opinions for anything.
Not at all.
We're nobodies sitting in a room talking into a microphone. Do your own research. Form your own opinions. Trust, but verify.